Well, welcome everybody to another walkie-talkie. And today I'm going to be reflecting on a passage in the Gospels just a couple of days before Passover. So in our timeline today, it's pretty similar because actually this week is leading up to a time where Jesus has a Passover meal, what we'd known as the Last Supper or the Lord's Supper, together with his disciples. And it was here that Jesus went into the house of Simon the leper with his disciples. And he was reclining at a table. Now remember, tables weren't sort of normal height like we have today. They would have been low. And they would have been lying on their arm, reclining on their arm on the floor. And it's here that this woman comes in. This woman comes in and she just gets this alabaster jar of perfume out. She smashes it open and she pours it all over Jesus' head as this act of worship. Now, I should imagine Jesus, well, pretty sure that Jesus encountered this woman earlier. And, you know, in a time, in a culture where especially women who, sinful women, would have been scorned, would have been rejected, ostracized by the community. Yet somewhere down the line, Jesus has shown her love and compassion. He's given her attention and offered her forgiveness and a fresh start. And boy, that must have impacted this woman, because she sort of ran home, I would imagine. She knew exactly what was in her cupboards. This alabaster jar of expensive oil, which was probably her dowry, probably to, you know, help her get started with a marriage and a family. But she grabs it and she bursts in Simon the leper's house. She finds Jesus, gets down at his feet, and she pours this alabaster jar of oil, this expensive perfume, which would have probably been worth about 20 grand. Remember, it's a year's salary for a man. And she pours it over him as an act of worship and gratitude and praise. How would you respond if you saw that, knowing how much money that was worth? Well, the disciples, it says, they were indignant. They weren't really happy with this whole thing. In fact, they said, you know, why on earth are you letting this woman do this? This money could have been used for the poor. And Jesus said, leave her alone. What this woman has done is a beautiful thing. You know, you'll always have the poor, you know, and that's a good thing that you should help the poor. But you won't always have me. And what this woman has done is to prepare my body for burial. Remember, Jesus knows where he's going. He knows he's going to the cross. It's the Father's will that he gives his life for us. So he says, you know, you'll always have the poor, but you won't always have me. She's preparing my body for burial. And then he said, look, you know, what this woman has done is going to be a testimony for her always. And that's what we're doing now. We're talking about this, sharing this story of this wonderful act that this woman done, this act of worship where she smashed her alabaster jar of perfume as an act of gratitude, poured it over Jesus' head as an act of worship to him. A lesson for us in that is that, you know, giving your all to Jesus is never a waste. I think in this time, you know, even us in ministry, you know, we have talents and gifts and organizational skills and leadership skills and innovative ideas and all this stuff. And Jesus is saying, okay, well, you know, well, that's good and all that, but that's not what he's looking for. Jesus is looking for the heart. He's looking for all. You know, that's where he looks. He looks at the heart, and he's looking for you to give your all to him. Remember, we sing that song, don't we? I surrender all. I really struggle with that because, you know, do I genuinely, when I sing that, do I really give my all to Jesus? And I would probably honestly say, no, I don't. But Jesus is looking for at least a desire to give your all to him as an act of worship. And remember, if you give your all to Jesus, if you give your heart completely to him, it's never a waste. Remember, this woman, everything that she had, £20,000 worth of perfume, because Jesus showed her love and compassion and forgiveness and a fresh start. She went into Simon the leper's house and poured the whole lot over Jesus' head. You know, giving your all to Jesus is never a waste. And that's a good lesson for us, but it's challenging, isn't it? How can we find ways to give our all? I think it's just your heart, isn't it? We mess up occasionally, don't we? We turn to other things occasionally, but I think that's where our heart needs to be set towards him. Didn't Jesus say, where your heart is, your treasure there is also? And if your heart is towards Jesus, you know, that's your mind and your whole life emphasis is going to be towards him. And that's what he wants, isn't it? Even though at times we mess up, Jesus at least wants your heart set towards him in an act of worship. That's a wonderful challenge, isn't it? Or a difficult challenge, but a wonderful truth. So remember that. Giving your all to Jesus is never a waste. Don't forget, as we lead up to Good Friday, tomorrow we're going to be celebrating Maundy Thursday. That's the time where Jesus had his Last Supper with his disciples and he had communion with them. And he gave a pattern for us as the body of Christ, that we come together and remember what he's done on the cross. We're going to do that in the Zoom room, so make sure you have grape juice, wine, and grape juice or wine. Oh, there's my cue again. And some bread, light a candle. Sign into Zoom with the link that I've sent you. And then together, as an act of solidarity and unity together as the body of Christ, we can have communion together. We can't do it physically, which is a shame, but we can do it together online. And we're so grateful for technology, aren't we? So anyway, be blessed and be a blessing. And remember that giving your all to Jesus is never a waste. Amen.